Hello and good day to you, my beautiful friends. I do hope you are well. Welcome to episode 33 of Cross Button VR, our journey into the world of PSVR2, a show for those who want to share in our newcomers' enthusiasm for the world of VR. Now, I'm your host, Laurie, but for anyone who doesn't really pay attention to this bit, I just want to let you know that we are part of the Cross Players. So, if you enjoy what you hear, do check out thecrossplayers.com for links to all of our content and our Discord. And if you like this show, you should really check out Crosscast, our weekly pod that covers the full gamut of gaming. Now, it's an honour to be joined by just one this time of the most forlorn influencers in the metaverse. It's Alex. How's it going?
Good. The best one, at least.
The best
The
of the
best
two.
one.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that. I thought you must be pretty forlorn. You've missed. You were without Ben tonight. That must bring you.
I know.
A tear.
I do miss my podcasting husband.
I know it's just a
I
rare.
did spend a little lunchtime with him though.
Just like we are on a break. Okay, good. Audience doesn't need to worry. You have podcasted with Ben today, just not together now. So you can't go a day without podcasting about Ben. So maybe not that forlorn then.
I'll survive.
You've not just let the audience know. Ben and Alex have not fallen out. Don't worry, they're not having some sort of tiff. They're still friends.
We're forever in love.
Far from it. And although it may not have Ben on the main part of this episode, he is going to be coming along later on for a pre-recorded segment that we have for your listening and viewing pleasure. And I'm not going to be on that bit. So just to really mix things up a bit, just to keep people on their toes, we've got the first part of the show with myself and Alex. And then I'm going to be passing over virtually through the magic of editing to Ben and Alex, who will be interviewing Fast Travel Games' Chief Creative Officer, Erik Odeldahl. And people will know that Fast Travel Games are currently developing Vampire the Masquerade Justice. And we were lucky enough to be able to sit down. Well, Ben and Alex were lucky enough to be able to sit down and interview him earlier today. So I would look forward to listening back to that interview as well, because I've not heard that yet as well. So it's going to be a rare treat for me to be able to listen back to an episode and have some new content to listen to. So that's cool.
It was a very cool interview. I think a lot of interesting information and made me more excited about the game, which is great.
All right, spoilers. All right, calm down. It's bad as me. Before that, we've got a bit of news, and we've been playing a few games. I've been playing Angry Birds VR, which I'm glad I can now finally talk about. And you've been playing BLINNK and the Vacuum of Space. Anything else, Alex, that you're going to be talking about?
I've been playing a little bit more Pixel Ripped 1995. Did talk about that last week, so maybe just touching that a little too.
We can get an update on that. But before we get onto what we've been playing, let's just talk about some of the news we've had this week. And again, it's been another fairly busy week, which is good. We have had a release date finally for Propagation Paradise Hotel, and that is due to release. We knew it was coming in October, I believe, and now we know it's coming October the 12th. So anyone listening for this on the day this podcast drops, you only have to wait a couple of days and you can be playing Propagation Paradise Hotel on PSVR2. Yeah,
it's very good. Very scary.
Yeah,
very polished.
I might even give this one a go, because I've kind of resisted any of the horror stuff, but this one does look good, and it looks quite kind of strong story narrative kind of thing to it, which is what I want. So yeah, I think this one does look good.
Yeah, it seems to be high up many people's wanted lists as well. There does seem to be a lot of hype for this one, which is nice to see. So fingers crossed it lands well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just from old reviews of it. Eurogamer described it as a surprisingly good VR horror game with an old school Resident Evil vibe. I mean, I like any VR game that's surprisingly good. So yeah, maybe we'll give that a go. I mean, I don't know how far I'll get because it is quite scary, but yeah, I think is that the first of these all these October scary games? Is that maybe the first one to land?
It feels like it because there is quite a few coming. Because you've got Madison VR, you have the seventh guest.
Ghostbusters is my kind of horror game.
Well, it's not horror, is it? I'm sure there's another couple as well. So there's a few coming.
Surely that makes it horror. It's got ghosts in it.
Comedic horror.
Yeah, well, now he's getting into semantics. But yeah, I like this one, and I don't know what updates it's had from the Quest versions, but presumably it's going to have some nice upgrades and stuff to justify its place on PSVR2, and hopefully it works. Which is we don't want any more broken releases, please. So yeah, we'll look forward to that one. So I'm sure we'll have our thoughts on that in a few weeks' time as we all play that. Next up, there is finally been a release date for Gazzlers. Release date it's out now, in fact. So so people can actually now play that. So it was delayed about a month or so ago. We were expecting it out, and then it got delayed for a
few weeks
unspecified amount of time. And that is now out now. So it was a surprise release. I haven't seen any reviews for anything. We've not had a chance to play it yet. So I suspect we will get around to playing that hopefully this week, and we'll have some thoughts on that for the show next week. But you've been looking forward to that one, haven't you?
Yeah, the one that just looked quite fun. I've been keeping an eye on the Discord and stuff, and seeing people playing it on Quest and Steam, and people seem to be enjoying it. And it just, I've been definitely looking forward to giving it a try. They're also running a little competition at the minute to win a Quest 3, depending on your score that you get to submit a score, and they're giving away a Meta Quest 3. So it's maybe something for people to look into as well if they're interested.
Was that even if you play it on?
Yeah, I think it's any platform that you play it on. Yeah, there's doing a wee competition.
Wow, you'll have to cancel your Quest 3 pre-order then, wouldn't you, if you won that?
Nah, it's too late.
Too late. Oh dear. If you actually have got one of those pre-ordered, haven't you?
I do, yeah.
You do. Oh, well, we can have an episode where you'll be permitted to talk about it only in the context of what it means to PSVR2, though. Can't have you hijacking this into a Quest VR.
No, of course not.
Although I'm sure our audience will be keen to hear your takes on that when you get it. Cool. So yeah, that's Gazzlers out now. Next up, we have there's a delay to one of the most kind of promising VR games that's in development. Is Behemoth, which has been delayed to late 2024. Which I think it was early 24, or is it unspecified release window is kind of Q4.
I think it was
Q1.
even expected 23. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's quite a big chunky delay. It's but. Having seen the reveal of it, it looks very epic. Looks very like it's going to be a big, sort of bombastic type game. And so I'm hoping, delay it if that's what it needs to be. Don't release it if it's not going to be up to scratch. These things need all the time. I think especially in VR, if don't release a broken or a half made VR game. It's very, very noticeable when there are issues with it when you're playing stuff in VR. So yeah, I'm glad it's been delayed if that's what it needed. But also a bit of a shame because I was looking forward to that one. That did look very cool.
But it's not like we don't have a lot to play at the minute anyway, Laurie, so it might...
No, yeah, it was good. Indeed, it's good to have some stuff to look forward to in 2024, building that lineup. As you say, there's plenty enough to be playing in the meantime. Next up, another game which got a surprise release out now was Project Wingman, and that's not its full title, is it? What is the full?
Well, it's like something 59. It's got a tagline. Yeah, so that'll do. Project Wingman something 59.
Yeah, and that's been released. So we saw that obviously a week or so ago on the Sony new advert they released for it, and there was some nice gameplay clips of it, and it looked quite cool. And then everyone was just surprised. It was like, it's out now. And everyone was like, exciting. Everyone's going to rush to download that. But it wasn't quite what people were hoping for, Alex, was it?
No, I think there seemed to be some mixed expectations between whether you were getting a full game in VR2, but it turns out there's only 6 VR2 specific missions. And then I think on top of that, even those specific missions, there were some specific issues with the game itself. I think there was some workarounds to get it to work, and having to change some of the settings in the headset because you're just getting a black screen. And it wasn't. It didn't really land in the way that they'd hoped.
Yeah, that's fair. So it was. So you can play the game obviously in non-VR. Most of the game is just a non-VR game, and then they've. So was this already out on PS5 or is it out PC game?
I think it's been out for a while. I think potentially there's been a PlayStation version before, and there is certainly a PC VR version where you can play the whole thing in VR, which is I think is why people then expected for this to be. But it is a new game, so it's Frontline 59. It's called. That's the proper title.
So that extra subtitle bit that's the 6 new VR missions that have been built for VR. Can play them in non-VR as well, so you can play the whole thing in non-VR, and then if you can switch to VR for these 6 missions. And I guess if you're playing it with the headset on for the rest of the game, you could just play it on cinema screen mode if you want. You could take the headset off and just play it like a normal person on the sofa watching it on TV. But yeah, that's not great, is it? When they were building this up and doing clips of it and showing it as a kind of full VR game, and then it's just six missions. And then I saw people are saying when they tried to launch those VR missions, they just got a blank screen and it just never loaded. Which again is like, oh man, come on, just stop doing this kind of half baked or half. It's not great.
You feel for them as well, though, because I think this is a 1 or 2 man studio making this game, and it's hard, and game development is hard. But at the same time, there doesn't seem like a great need for this just to appear out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean,
so
it's just gone.
I was just going to say, it just feels like, was there something that forced this to come out, and then it just released it? I'm not saying they knew there was issues for it, but they could have at least maybe done a wee bit more testing to make sure it was okay, because clearly it did have some issues. And then at the same time, it comes back to what I was banging on about a few weeks ago when we were talking about Hellseeper VR. It's a lack of clear messaging that people don't know exactly what they're getting. There's no clarity in the message when people know, like with Hellseeper, they knew that these issues were going to be there and they knew what it was going to look like. They didn't portray that messaging. And again, they clearly knew that this was only going to be 6 missions in PSVR2, so I think there should have been more clear messaging in that.
Yeah, that is the issue, isn't it? If they did put out on the blog, they could say we're porting this to PS5 and we've also got a special VR set of missions, which is not going to be the full experience, but there'll be 5 or 6 extra missions built specifically for VR. Set expectations accordingly, and then okay, well, that's really cool. Now I can look forward to that, know what it is. But yeah, not saying that, and people just assuming it's going to be the full game in VR, and then releasing it, and people kind of rushed out and bought it straight away, which seems a bit silly to me because like these games aren't going anywhere. You don't need to. These digital games, you can download them whenever. So if you're not sure, and surely there's enough releases now. Yeah, the games aren't cheap. People are spending good money for this stuff. It's always better, I think, just wait and get some. Even if you don't want to wait for like proper reviews from proper outlets, just wait for some feedback. Just wait till what people are saying on YouTube and Twitter and stuff. Just get some first impressions of it. Just learn more about it. Because you might get surprised and get a nasty shock if you didn't realise it's not going to be the full game. You'd be booting it up on your headset, you're thinking, right, I'm going to jump into this, and you'd be like, hold on, what's going on here? Why is this not VR game? I just thought I've just bought PCR. So yeah, it's exactly like you say though. It's just a comms issue. They could have communicated that message much better, and there wouldn't have been any controversy. There wouldn't have been any upset by it. People would have been happy and would have played it for what it was and not for what it's not. So yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, hopefully one game which doesn't surprise on launch is Arizona Sunshine 2, which has had some hands-on impressions from people that have had some chance to play it. And they are generally very positive. It seems like it's an extension and evolution of the first game, which is essentially, for those that don't know, it's a zombie shooting game. It's kind of linear. You're going through these environments. A bit of light puzzle solving, a bit of shooting zombies, a bit of scavenging for resources and things, making your way through it. There's kind of a narrative that plays out through it as well. In this game, it seems like they've added some new mechanics like crafting and stuff. But the main thing, the main exciting thing, the main thing that I'm excited to play is that they've added a dog to it, which is very cool. I can get my own VR dog and use that to attack zombies with. And the dog's name is Buddy as well, which I was growing up, we had a dog and its name was Buddy as well.
Oh.
So it's going to have special significance to me, this dog, and he does look like a very good boy. So
let's hope like nothing happens to it.
I mean, it's come on, it's a zombie movie. Zombie trope is he's definitely going to die at the last
or become a zombie dog.
Oh, don't say that. I can't. I'd have to put down your own zombie dog after he's been loyally saving you for the whole campaign, and then you have to just probably stab him in the head. Oh, don't, that'd be so sad. It's definitely what they're going to do though, because it's a horror game and they're just bleak and miserable. It's anything like The Walking Dead, where it just has to be misery piled upon misery. That's definitely what's going to happen. But maybe not though, because it is a funny game. The tone of these games are supposed to be quite comedic, and it definitely makes me more want to play it, because I do get fed up with these kind of very bleak zombie games that are just relentlessly miserable and just terrible things happening to the protagonist. So yeah, it looks good. The trailers of it are quite amusing, so hopefully that comedy and the tone can carry on through the game.
every time they've shown this, it looks incredibly promising. So it's good to hear people now hands-on that it feels like it's delivering on that promise. So you say it looks great humour, great action, just looks like a whole load of fun, which is exactly what VR should be.
And still no release date on this one, but they are saying that they are hoping for a late 23 or a very early 24 release. So not too far away. I mean, when people say that, then surely I'm thinking, okay, well, Q1 24. Yeah. Don't, if you think it might be that, then go for err on the side of caution and give yourself more time. Just perfect it, polish it, keep making it good. So yeah, hopefully it'll be early 24 release, which at some point we'll get around to having a 24 release preview episode where we can look at all the games. But there's quite a few now, which I've certainly got. None obviously developed by Sony, of course, because that'd be ridiculous. But still, there's some games that are looking good to look forward to next year for the headset.
Yep.
Next up, a game which is out and hasn't disappointed people on release is Ghost Signal VR, a Stellaris game. Stellaris, yeah, not Stella. I'll have a pint of Stella game. Ghost Signal. And this is a VR action roguelike where you are captaining your ship and you're kind of a space kind of battling game where you are controlling a ship in third person, which looks great and looks like it kind of is a great way to overcome that in space. You're kind of that Star Wars game where it just instantly makes you sick because you're rolling around and you're dogfighting, you're doing barrel rolls and stuff, and you're just instantly gonna throw up. So to take you out of the cockpit and just make yourself as a third person observer and controlling the ship, that seems like a great compromise and a great way to hopefully make it a much more comfortable way to play the game.
Yeah, I can't wait to play this. It just looks really promising. The reviews have been really promising. We actually spoke to Erik and Jamie from Fast Travel about it because this is another one from Fast Travel Games. So this is Eric's one of his favourite games that he's made. He loves this game. They're really pleased with how it's landed. There is a demo out there and they are having a couple of issues with the demo. Hopefully by the time this comes out that should be fixed. But there's a demo on PSVR2 to give it a go. And I think it's one of those... I don't think it's a game you'd immediately look at and think, oh, that's what I need to play, but it certainly feels like it's one of the ones that you should give a try, particularly given there's a demo there. There's no excuse not to, and I don't think you'll be disappointed.
I saw some YouTuber or some VR influencer type person on Twitter saying this is the most trust me bro VR game. Just like trust me, just play this game. It doesn't look like something that you might want to play. It doesn't look like it should be great, but it's a Ben's going to love it because it's a roguelike as well, which is always good. I don't know. There's quite a lot of these roguelikes coming out on PSVR2, and I do like a roguelike, but I also just like a non-roguelike game that you can just get through in a few hours and just tell the story without having to grind away on it. I don't know. I think I'm playing Rogue Legacy 2 at the moment on Switch, which is kind of obviously very much a roguelike and I've had so many runs of that game now. So I'm not very good at games. I'm persisting with it though, and I'm getting better and better each time. I'm just like, oh god, I can't start another roguelike. Just that loop of gameplays. I love them, but it's just I can only take so much of them, especially one at a time. So we'll see. Hopefully, we'll see if it pulls me away from Rogue Legacy 2. But yeah, like you, I'm also very looking forward to playing this. The reviews of it look very positive. So yeah, we'll hopefully have some of our thoughts on it in the coming weeks as well. There's going to be a lot of this, people listening and watching. We're going to have thoughts in a few weeks. There's so many games out.
Yeah, we can't play everything at once.
We can't play all of them at once. We are just going to try and a lot of these games have dropped like in the last few days, and I've had family staying. I've been away as well for a few days, so I've had very little time to. We've been getting quite a lot of early access to stuff, but I've just not had any time to play anything, sadly. Real life is getting in the way, and until our Patreon numbers pick up massively, I still have to work. So if anyone wants to do anything about that, if you want more timely hot takes, then you all need to sign up to Patreon in enough numbers that we can all quit our jobs and just play PSVR2 games. Until then, though, I'm afraid you just need to
we'll
wait.
do our best.
Yeah. Okay, next up we have a reveal which you spotted, I think, on the PlayStation Store for Peaky Blinders VR.
Yeah.
Which, having checked out some reviews of this for the Quest game, obviously it's another Quest port, it just seems like it's described as kind of an average VR game, nothing too special. If you are a fan of the IP and big fan of the TV series, then you will get a lot more enjoyment out of this, but for otherwise, there's not really much of a need but it's not a great game.
I just remember with this one, when we were at EGX last year, all the guys kicking about when they were promoting this EGX last year with their little flat caps and everything, their Peaky Blinders outfits. That's
You a Peaky Blinders fan, Alex?
I've never seen it, so
I've never seen it either. So yeah, not the most qualified ones to speak about this time.
Yeah, but it seems like if you have seen it, there's a game there for you to enjoy in that world. So
yeah, cool. And then the final bit of news is another reveal for Vetrix Worlds, which is quite a cool name. It reminds me of Wetrix. Do you remember that game on the N64?
I do. Yeah.
And like that, it's another Tetris-style game, and it's been designed with a kind of VR spin on things where you can manually place the bricks on the lines. Is that right?
It's almost like that. It's kind of all those eyes is like a little trailer just now. I think it might either be an early access out on Steam PC VR just now, but they said the release date for PSVR2 be coming very soon. But it looks like almost there's a kind of co-op element and I think multiplayer element of, and it is like you standing at a wall with all these Tetris PCs trying to manually put them all in, so rather than falling, it's like you constructing and trying to build all the lines and stuff. And I'm like, this is absolutely an Alex game. If I've ever seen an Alex game, this is an Alex game. So I'm really excited about this.
It looks very much like an Alex game, as you're quite fond of Tetris Effect, it's fair to say. Yeah. So, yeah, we'll be looking forward to hearing your thoughts. I'm also a big Tetris fan, so I'm keen to give this one a go as well.
I think this will be good.
Well, that's it for all the news. And speaking of things that are good, can I tell you something that's good that I've been playing?
Yeah, please.
Angry Birds VR. It's so good. Angry Birds, right? Angry Birds. I played this on my mobile phone, I don't know, 10 years ago, whenever it was that it was just out.
Probably longer than that.
Longer than I'm sure it was, probably 15 years ago. I'm trying to think how long I've had smartphones to be able to play it on. Yeah, it kind of one of the first big mobile games, wasn't it? It was the first big hits that kind of broke out of just being a shitty mobile game that actually became very mainstream. It's had films out and everything else, and just toys and loads of merch spin-offs and stuff. And so I haven't played it in years. Angry Birds in VR though, man, it works so well and it's so much fun. It's so good to play, and it's a really, I don't know, not rare I suppose, but an example of how switching a game to VR elevates it so much from what you're used to, how you're used to playing it. Because it's not like some earth-shattering game of the year contender in Angry Birds, but it's a fun game. Obviously, it's had a huge audience, and I enjoyed it at the time. It's a great kind of simple mechanic, very simple, very satisfying. Essentially, a puzzle game where you have to fire. For those that somehow are unfamiliar with the Angry Birds world, there's a bunch of pigs that have stolen a load of bird eggs, and the parents of said bird eggs are very angry about it, you could say, and they are out to get their revenge, and they revenge themselves by firing themselves at the pigs and destroying their little structures that the pigs are on and blowing the pigs up, which is quite a brutal storyline there. But that is the story. And so, you have to basically, the mobile version of the game is you just fire it and you just control the trajectory of these birds and you just fire them, and it's the structures that are built up, kind of like a house of cards almost, and you have to just hit them in the right place to send them all toppling over. It's very satisfying when you can hit a bird in exactly the right spot. And some of the birds you can make them explode, or you can tap again mid-flight and they speed up, or they split into cluster bombs somehow. But yeah, very satisfying. It's a puzzle game, essentially. You have to work out exactly what trajectory to hit, when to use the kind of special attack to do the extra damage effect. And playing that in VR, it's exactly the same. You've got the structure with the pigs in front of you. You have a slingshot in your hands. You're holding a slingshot. You put a bird in it and you pull it back, and then you can fire it. So rather than just having on a mobile game where you can control stuff and you're just controlling the height of something, and then you fire stuff off. On this, you're in VR, so you can hold that slingshot wherever you want, and you can point it at any angle, however you want. You can crouch down, go low, you can go high, you can lean across, and it has different vantage points as well around the levels. You can move around and see the objects, the little structure in front of you in 3D space as well. And just like the mobile version, you can play through, and some levels you can get through, and you'll just do one hit, and you'll work it out, and you'll knock the whole thing over, and you get 3 stars, and you can move on to the next one. So some of the levels take you 30 seconds max, and then some of them you'll hit a block and you'll be like, how the fuck do I do this? Because they'll just be really well built structures that are hard to knock down, and you have to find the puzzle is finding the angle you have to hit it from, choosing the right vantage point, working out what order to hit your attacks in to knock them all down and get the most points on it. Because you can get through every level just with 1 star, but you want to try and get it with 3 stars just for that satisfaction of doing it. And yeah, I just am really enjoying it.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. Like, it shouldn't work as well as it does, but immediately it just puts a smile on your face. Incredibly simple, incredibly addictive, and it just takes you back to sitting there for hours on your phone trying to get 3 stars in every level, and you're just doing exactly the same. But the vantage points here just make it, and the kind of 3D nature of it just really elevate it, for the fact that they can almost hide little explosive crates in the structures, and if you're not at the right vantage point, you won't necessarily see that, and then just scouting it out a little bit. But yeah, I mean, you're not gonna lie, it's Angry Birds, and you basically have one objective, is to get 3 stars in each level by destroying these structures, and that's what you do for hundreds of levels, or all these created levels. So it can get a bit repetitive, but you're not necessarily going to sit there and play it for hours and hours and hours. You're maybe going to jump in for half an hour at a time here and there if you're not really wanting to play anything particularly stressful or particularly taxing. That's one you can just sit and enjoy.
Yeah, you know you're not going to have time to get into a big story game or get something too intense, because you can just knock off a couple of levels and then jump out of the game and play something else. That's the beauty of the PS5, how quick it is to load games and jump in and out of things. It's good. The presentation of it as well just looks so nice as well. The menus, the UI. Shame Ben's not here, because I'm sure he'd have some thoughts, or would love to hear about the UI. But it's just everything's so satisfying to press in VR. It's big chunky buttons that you point at and you fire at, and they click in. Really, really sharp as well. I don't know what the kind of resolution and frame rate and stuff is, but it looks really sharp to me. One of the sort of crispiest games that I can think of playing. And obviously the graphics are fairly basic. Obviously, looks a bit like, reminds me of Walkabout Mini Golf, when you're in Walkabout where you can zoom out and see the whole island and stuff. It's kind of like that kind of level of graphical fidelity. Also, special shout out to this game as well. My son absolutely loves it, and I think Angry Birds is generally marketed at a younger audience as well, so for kids to play. And so there's been a few games. My son's always wanted to try out quite a few of the VR games. Obviously, there's a few that I'm not going to let him anywhere near, but there's quite a few that he's just tried out. And just because he's probably a bit young and a bit small for it, to be honest. I don't let him play it very much, obviously, because he's below the recommended age. But he wants to get involved. He wants to have a go. And this is the perfect game for younger children. He really, really loves this, and he can play it. And it's just, everyone can understand how you play Angry Birds. You don't need to explain to someone how you fire a slingshot, and it's so easy and intuitive to do. So he's really enjoyed this, and he's cracked off quite a few of the levels for me as well.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, even if your kids aren't playing, they're going to enjoy watching. Like, if you've got it up on the TV where you're playing, they'll laugh at you playing it, and they'll laugh at what's going on the screen, because it's bright, it's colourful, it's daft, it's fun.
Yeah, and it is a good one. It obviously doesn't have co-op, but I don't think it does. But when I'm playing it with my son, he's there with the headset and he's not wearing the headphones, so I can still talk to him, and I can obviously see what he's doing on the TV, so I can sort of say to him, "Well, go up there, try and shoot it from down there, or go up on that side." And there is that kind of, you can talk to each other and try and strategize together and try and work it out and stuff. So it's a great. Yeah, we're having a really good time playing it. It's now, if I let him play on the PSVR2, he'll want to play now. So it's really nice. So if anyone's got young kids and they want to have something that they can dabble in VR, obviously you don't want to let your kids play for hours and hours and hours. I think it's not recommended, but if you just want to let them have a quick go, this is a perfect game. So Angry Birds, there you go. Now, before Alex, we go on to what you've been playing, because I do want to hear about that, I just want to let everyone know that if they want to support us, they can give the podcast a sub on the service they are using, and they can give us a review too. And please do follow us on Twitter if you're not already, at CrossButtonVR and at the Crossplayers. And as always, if you really would like to support us, you can do so via patreon.com/thecrossplayers. And we've just had a revamp of our tiers, or we're about to. But for as little as £2 a month, you can help us produce the show and get entry into our lovely little batshit crazy, as Dan would say, WhatsApp group. Now, Alex, over to you. What have you been playing?
sticking to the family theme, I've been playing Blink in the Vacuum of Space. So you might remember we mentioned this a few weeks ago. So this is a game which is designed and made specific. Well, it's not made specifically for autistic people, but it's designed with autistic people in mind. So it was developed by Change and Day, who are a Glasgow-based studio, husband and wife, founded studio with an autistic daughter, and they set out to make an accessible game for children like their daughter to be able to play. It's a space adventure where you are this little robot which is there and has been guided by. It's almost a bit like, say, like Job Simulator and Cosmonius High and Vacation Simulator, where you've got the talking computer type thing speaking to you. You have Blink as like a robot like that, almost kind of Wall-E Eve-esque to a certain extent. It's quite Pixar-y. Like, it does feel a little Pixar-like. And essentially you're in Norpopolis is the name of the planet you're on, and you basically, there's an experiment going wrong and all these little green groups go on a loose, and your task basically is to go and do all these little jobs around the space station almost, which becomes these different levels to vacuum or hoover up these little groups to pull them all back together. But it's incredibly chill, so it's designed where you've got like almost a little wristwatch, and at any point you can hit this wristwatch and it takes you back to this chill zone where if it ever kind of gets a little bit overwhelming or you just need a little bit of time,
Such
hit
a
this
good mechanic.
button, you're sitting in this nice little chill zone with some nice sensory objects round about you. You can customize some of that. You can basically customize everything within the game, whether it's like the size of the text, the amount of sound that you get, like all those different sensory options can be customized and tailored to suit.
I'd love, Alex, if you could do a recording of, you could put out a video, even if it's just one of those YouTube, the shorts that we can do, or just put some on Twitter, because I would love to see that. And I think people listening would just love to see an example of what you're describing there, because it sounds wonderful.
And it literally takes you from the spot of whatever task that you're doing back to this space. You hit the button again, you get exactly back to what you were doing there. And it's really fun. It's quite funny, fun little task that you're doing. So you can be like almost doing airport luggage security. So you're seeing this luggage come through the scanners, looking for things that maybe are untoward. You need to then assess what's in the bags, whether they should be allowed through or whether they shouldn't be allowed through, and destroy the stuff. Or the other ones, like you get these robots where they're a bit faulty. You need to then assess the robots and replace the faulty parts. You're finding these things in a dentist. You're going in, there's almost like fishing and farming. There's all like random little things, a bit like it is that kind of job simulator-esque type experience. That's really the genre that it falls into. But it's great at what it does. I think it's got a specific purpose, designed with a specific market in mind, and it really serves to that. But that doesn't mean it won't be enjoyable by other people, because it's just a really nice, chilled game. I think particularly for kids would really enjoy it with that Pixar, I was going to say Pixar theme to it. Like, it does have that feel. Like the little grubs look like they could be something out of Monsters Inc. Like it's got that kind of.
Sounds very sort of is it Alchemy Labs, the people that make Job Simulator and Cosmonius High, which I would describe Cosmonius High as very Pixar-y as well. But yeah, it sounds a similar sort of game, and those games are designed as well for someone. It's that kind of introduction and that not to training wheels, but just to ease someone into VR gently and help them sort of get to learn the mechanics and how it all works.
It's a really interesting story for the studio as well. It's Changing Day, they're called, and there's a really interesting, I've said interesting about 15 times now, but it's a really good article that they did an interview with gamesindustry.biz about like their studio, their purpose, and what they set out to achieve. So it's definitely worth a read. I would Google Changing Day and gamesindustry.biz, or maybe tweet out the article. So keep a lookout for that. It's worth a read.
Well, that sounds really good. Do you have any more before we move on? Any other final thoughts you want to mention on that game?
No, I mean, I haven't finished it yet, but it's just nice, chilled fun. At one point, it feels like, so the one bit I haven't missed, you can play it standing, you can move about, you can play seated, but when you're seated, it gives you a hover seat. I almost felt like a bit Professor X or something, the way it gives you this hover seat. You just feel this seat moving about, and it's
quite cool.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, we look forward to hearing more about that if you're going to keep playing it. But let's end things there with myself and your good self. And thank everyone for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, well, hopefully you'll enjoy the rest of it too. But if you could tell all your family and friends about us, and if you'd like to get more involved, please don't hesitate to drop into our Discord and say hi. And yeah, thanks to all our patrons once again for supporting everything that we do. Now, we're not finished yet, but I've been your host, Laurie. He's been Alex, and we will see you again next time. Until then, though, please enjoy our interview with Fast Travel Games' Chief Creative Officer, Erik Odeldahl, who's going to tell us more about Vampire the Masquerade Justice, which is coming to PSVR2 very soon.
I was going to say, you're obviously, as Chief Creative Officer, that entails a lot of work, but you've got loads of kind of other interests as well. I know you're an author and you make music at the same time.
Yeah.
Do you ever find the time to play video games?
I do. I try to make time for video games. It's at times I play a lot. Other times, like for instance now when we're finishing a game, I don't play a lot at all. It just basically, if you spend 8-9 hours a day just fixing issues with video games, I just don't want to see any more video games.
Yeah,
understandable.
No, but I usually try to make time for that, both VR and flat screen games. So.
Have you got your eye on anything in particular? So once you're out of this crazy period that you think, oh, I need to get around to playing that.
Yes, I do. I have. First of all, when it comes to VR, I want to spend some real time with Synapse. I see you have that on your
Yeah.
because I haven't had the time to do that. And when it comes to flat screen, I only managed about 5 hours of Baldur's Gate 3 before I had to put it to the side. But yeah, but that's probably where I'm going to spend most of my time, and then I'm going to spend. Also, some time blowing up big robots in Armored Core 6.
Oh, wow.
And it's just like you.
you just, yeah. I mean, those are the two games that I currently got on the go, and they're both fantastic. So, yeah, I'm sure you'll enjoy them. But I guess that's enough about other people's games. We want to hear about Vampire the Masquerade Justice.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about it. Give us the kind of elevator pitch and where you're at with it.
So the elevator pitch is it's a VR first-person stealth title. It's set in the Vampire the Masquerade story universe, and it's set in current day Venice, Italy. Our own rendition of Venice. It's very dark and moody, and not tourist friendly necessarily. And you play a vampire from the clan Banu Hakim. They're the judges of the guilty, and you're there to set things right, according to your own, what you think is right, I guess.
Right. So that's where the justice part comes into it.
That's where the justice part comes in. Yeah.
And how does that play out kind of mechanically? Obviously it's first person. I noticed, there's a lot of biting going on, as one would expect. Now, when we first saw this game, I got very excited about that because I was envisaging, are you actually lunging forward and kind of doing something, are you using the kind of headset tracking to do that, or how does that work?
So, there's a lot of first person biting, and that was one of the first things I have in my initial pitch document was basically we need to do blood drinking in first person. And so, yes, you do lean forward, you bite. You can mime if you want to, it helps.
Yeah.
But basically you grab hold of your victim and you drink the blood, and and then you throw them to the side. There's a nice little kind of like a mini game where if you time your drinking well, the hunger replenishment is improved, stuff like that. But it plays out in first person, and you do drink a lot of blood, but you also you play a vampire named Justice, and you're basically, what you do is you strike from the shadows. You're a predator. So you sneak around a lot, you climb a lot on the facades of the buildings and sneak around in tunnels below. And you sneak around, as you would in a stealth game. But there's a lot of climbing. You have quite a few vampiric abilities. They're called disciplines in the Vampire the Masquerade that helps you with, your bloody deeds. So.
Very cool. And what's the kind of? I mean, my main concern was, can I bite people? The answer seems to be yes. Amazing.
Makes you happy.
So that's me sold. But what is the kind of how's the locomotion work? Have you got any different options? Because obviously a lot of VR has got comfort settings. What's the?
We've got comfort settings. We've got comfort settings, but it's built around free locomotion. So free locomotion with different kinds of turning and vignettes helping you when it comes to comfort stuff. But then you also do a lot of climbing and throwing yourself around. So stick-based free locomotion, a lot of climbing. You do have a blink ability as well. So there's a combination of stick-based free locomotion, climbing, and blink, like a short-range teleportation thing. But we don't have a blink comfort setting, which allows you to play through the whole game using teleportation.
Okay. And what sort of, a lot of games we play in VR, they tend to be shorter experiences because, it's the nature of the medium, right? You don't want to have it on for 8 hours at a time. What sort of length can players expect, would you say?
So it's a fairly meaty single player campaign with a couple of side missions on top. So we estimate most players will play between 12 to 15 hours. Of full narrative. It can if you're a really really good stealth player, it's probably a bit shorter. And if if you're a completionist, it can probably be a lot longer. We have each mission. It's mission based, so you have kind of like a base of operations, and then you head out into the city to do undertakings, we call them. And each undertaking also has a number of optional challenges. Basically, play through this mission without killing anyone, or without ever being seen, or without taking any damage, stuff like that. So there's a ton of, you can create your own challenges, and the more of these you complete, the more experience points you get, which means that you can upgrade your different disciplines and powers and stuff like that.
Nice. It's got that kind of R&B. R&B? What am I talking about? So I was listening to music before this started. Kind of got that RPG hook to it.
Yes, exactly.
With some R&B thrown in there.
Vampire the Masquerade is it is a pen and paper role playing game from the beginning, right? So it was published first in the 90s. So we carry that in the design as well, but it's slightly lighter on that side, I'd say. But we've built a dialogue system, a conversation system, where you can also be a somewhat nicer guy or a more threatening one. And there's an intimidation skill system as well, where you can intimidate some characters to get what you want, stuff like that.
Cool. And this is coming out, it's November 2nd, right?
November 2nd on PSVR2 and the Quest.
The Quest. And in terms of that, what's, specifically for PSVR2, has there been any kind of, obviously the feature set of PSVR2 is quite advanced. Have you kind of found any of that during the course of development that you're able to incorporate into the game that maybe you didn't scope out originally?
So the main thing for me as a designer is the haptics. We've worked a lot with that, both HMD haptics and controller haptics, and we've worked that into the game, I think, beautifully. I really like how that works. Of course, visually, we can crank it up as well in comparison to the Quest. I do think it looks lovely on Quest 2 as well. We're really pushing the hardware on Quest 2 and 3. But I mean, the PlayStation allows us to crank that up even more, of course.
Yeah.
More.
You can be kind of untethered and you can just push everything up to 11, which is, that's good. I mean, look, I guess in a sort of general sense, we've seen several games coming out of late on PSVR2 specifically that appear to be somewhat unfinished or rushed. There's been a bit of backlash lately with a few releases. what I guess for our perspective and for our audience, it would be interesting to get your view on why you think that's happening and how you guys are avoiding it. I guess be very interesting to know.
I don't think I have a good opinion about that. I know that we spend a lot of time. We always build our games at Fast Travel Games. It's like multi-platform games from the start. When we start development, that helps. I think a lot of VR games come from smaller studios. And I think you should never underestimate the amount of work it takes to bring a game from one platform to another one. So I think that could be a reason. I'm not saying it is for the games you're talking about, but it could be a reason. I mean, even Fast Travel Games is we're a decently sized studio now. We're about 70-ish people. But I mean, we don't have 70 people working on one game.
Yeah.
But it's still, but the thing is, we're a decently sized studio and working on different platforms. There's always some logistics, what you prioritize, what don't you. I know that we really try to put the focus and the time necessary on each platform as well. So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think you're right. With it being a relatively new, I know VR as a concept has been around for a long time, but we've had developers on in the past where they've talked about almost the design language and the metaphors haven't been solidified yet. So there must be an element of making it up as you go, which you don't get in traditional games, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's still that. There's less of it now than maybe 5 years ago. I do think that we should, as developers, still push that, still try to break out of paradigms, I guess. I mean, one thing that when we started out in 2016 at Fast Travel, basically stick-based movement was like, no, that's not going to be a thing in VR. It's never going to work. And then, of course it did. But we didn't believe it would initially. But now it's basic. That's in first-person games. It's basically how you do it. With some exceptions, of course. And it's so I think we should still try to push on the and push the boundaries, I guess, for when it comes to stuff like locomotion and what you do and what you should focus on. I think when it comes to justice, there's a lot of big VR mechanics. There's a lot of smaller ones. There's a lot of stuff you would recognize from games in the stealth genre from flat screen as well. And I like to think about it. So how can we take this typically flat screen thing and turn it into a VR feature without it just feeling like, layered on top or, so you need to think things through. But there's also some really interesting games that, really, do things around movement and stuff like that, which Synapse is one which I'd like which I've just said I'd like to play a bit more, that it does things. We've seen it in flat screen, but we've never really experienced it in that same way, and I think Justice does the same thing when it comes to stealth.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of VR, isn't it, is that finding new ways to interact with a game that we haven't seen, something like Before Your Eyes where you're controlling it just by blinking. Even what we played last week, Alex, the what's it, Waltz of the Wizard, where you're conjuring up spells just by using your voice, and all stuff like that is novel, and it might not work flawlessly first time, but that's what's going to push things forward, isn't it? It's developers taking a chance and going, let's try this, it works, and refining it, and so
I think trying, you need to try, and that's the fun thing about VR, that it might just work or it might fall flat completely, and then you never do it again, but we still need to try to do weird things.
Yes, weird is good.
And I personally found, I think that's one of the good things, since we're very new to the VR community. Like PSVR2 was our route into VR, the three of us. So everything's new to us and fresh to us and exciting to us. But being part of that community now, it feels far more accepting of people trying and far more open to ideas. Whereas you feel like the flat screen community at the moment is just wanting to fight back at everything that goes wrong or every little thing, and it's all about a fight. Whereas it just feels much more welcoming. Players are much more open to these experiences, which is great for us to see from being far more based in that flat screen in the past. And it's just such a nice little community to be involved in.
It is a friendly community to, I mean, a large part. And the and I think there are very few VR games with AAA budgets, which also means that it's actually easier to experiment because you're not, risking $100 million or something like that. usually, right? So I think I understand there's a certain risk averseness when things become too expensive, and I think VR isn't there yet. It's I think taking risks with each game is something. It's a natural part of the development of a new VR title.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess what would be an interesting, again, just get your unique perspective on is that risk taking. I think Sony have proven that they are not completely against taking risks because they'll throw a product out and almost see if it hits. Do you foresee? We've done a lot of like predicting and reading the tea leaves about how we think they're going to handle it and what their plan is for PSVR2 leading into 2024. What do you think they are doing with the platform?
Oh my God, I actually don't know. I think they're gonna. I think they're going to continue to support it. I think they're going to continue to fund interesting game development titles. I think they have, at the moment, they have something that very few other platforms within the same price range at least have. They have the gaze tracking. They have the HMD haptics, which are, I mean, it might seem like a little thing, but to me it's actually when it comes to the haptics, they literally for me change how I think about design. So I think, and I hope that Sony will have titles that really focus in on the gaze tracking and the haptics, stuff that makes that platform unique. Similarly, I hope and think that Meta with Quest will focus on stuff, with their platform that's unique, the mixed reality stuff on Quest 3, but also the fact that you're untethered and can do stuff that you just, stuff that becomes problematic if you're in your living room in front of your
fitness games, for example.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think and I hope that each platform basically finds their unique thing, and then there's games like ours that naturally fit on both. But we then as a studio try to find, okay, so what can we do on a Quest here that makes this unique, and how can we strengthen stuff for the PSVR2, etc., etc. So I think but from Sony's point of view, I would guess and hope that the gaze tracking and the haptics is what they hone in on most.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe, sort of cash in on their list of fantastic IPs.
They have a ton of fantastic IPs as well.
Yeah. So if you could work on one of their IPs, if they just came to you and said, right, take your pick, go for it, what would be the dream scenario for you?
So I've loved a studio they fairly recently, I think, purchased or bought, which is Housemarque in Finland.
Yes. Yeah.
So if I could work on something Returnal based, I wouldn't say so.
That's
It's
funny. We had that exact conversation a couple of weeks ago, didn't we, Alex? About Housemarque is the one that we'd love to see a VR kind of
I think they're an amazing studio. I'm like a big fan. So
yeah, even go back to one of the highlights for me when the PS4 launched was Resogun. Like Resogun at that point in time
Resogun
was my
first. It was my first platinum trophy.
Wow,
that's a great first platinum.
What a first platinum! Amazing. Mine was. My name is Mayo. Less honor. Very cool. I saw something about Housemarque are expanding, moving into a new kind of studio next year as well. So yeah, onwards and upwards for them. Who knows what they've got up their sleeve? Hopefully some VR. Anyway, Erik, thank you very much for your time. I think we will leave it there. But Vampire the Masquerade Justice is out November 2nd.
Yep.
We are all very much looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to getting my teeth stuck into it. And wish you all the best with the launch.
Thank you so much. It was super nice talking to you.